Welcome to JK Tells a Story, where real-life dramas unfold. Sit back and enjoy today's tale. As you walked away from me, looking over your shoulder, you said, "I'll see you in the morning. It's just one night." You did this on purpose to humiliate me in front of your friends. You chose him over me on the day you organized for us, and your friends just sat there and smiled. We were in our first meeting with the counselor, and he had just asked me how I felt. The advisor warned me, saying, "I'll play devil's advocate." He looked at Sarah and asked, "Did you want to humiliate your husband?" I thought it was a strange question, but I really haven't been able to think straight since that night. She looked at me, nodded and said, "No, I didn't mean to humiliate you. It was just so you knew I'd be back in the morning." It didn't look like that from where I sat, watching my wife walk away arm in arm with another man. "Look at it from my point of view for once," I said. She looked down at her lap, then looked up at me. "I tried, and I'm so ashamed of what I did. Since the incident, we have hardly spoken. I only spoke to her about the most necessary things. Giving her the cold shoulder would be too soft. I was in deep silence. But I tried to talk to her when the children were around, trying to give them some kind of normality, and I was terribly unsuccessful. I completely ignored her whenever I could. We slept in the same bed because there were no others. If she touched me at night, I got up and left. If I had a choice, she would sleep in another bed. Having a night with him, she had left our marital bed. "My name is Dr. David Martinez. You can call me David, Dr. Martinez, or whatever you like," he said. Sarah said, "I'll call you David." I replied, "Dr. Martinez." He looked at me and said, "I'll let Sarah begin. Mike, do you mind?" "It's Mr. Anderson," I said. "I don't care." I took out my phone and put it on the table. I turned on the recording. "I hope this isn't being recorded," said Dr. Martinez. "It's being recorded, and if you object, I'll leave now," I said, standing up. Sarah winced. "Please let him. He has the right to after what I did." The doctor nodded his head, and I sat back down. I talked to my lawyer for a long time, and she convinced me that this is what I need to do, at least for the sake of the children. I don't know where Sarah found this consultant, and I don't care. It won't change the final outcome, but it may help me cope with the kids. I was worried about the children. If I couldn't cope, it would affect them. I knew I needed help, and I agreed to it. I had a plan. I will stay married until Jake turns 18 or leaves home first. I'm not impressed yet, but I didn't intend to be. I even refused to shake hands when we arrived. She started first, begging me that she would fix everything. It was just one night. She apologized for what happened. It was wrong, she admitted. She was weak, selfish, and thought she could fix everything. "No, you didn't realize how far this would go," I thought to myself. When Sarah finished, she cried, and there was nothing there that I hadn't heard before. Dr. Martinez looked at me. "It's your turn, Mike. Tell me how you feel and how you think you can overcome this." Overcome. Now he showed his true colors. It was my fault that she cheated. I looked at him and said, "I think you mean Mr. Anderson." "Sorry, Mike, Mr. Anderson." I looked at her. "Okay. In no particular order, let's go." That was probably the longest sentence I'd spoken to her since the Sunday she came home, a little over a week ago. It might help if you came back at a reasonable time, like 7 or 8 in the morning, and by taxi or Uber without driving up in his flashy sports car at almost 1 in the afternoon. And not getting out of the car while he held the door for you, then walking along the path in that red dress that you bought for me. He wanted to rub it in my face. "I was with your woman, and there's nothing you can do about it because I'm a star and I have a big, luxurious, expensive car. So not only did you betray me in front of all your friends, but you also let him humiliate me in front of the whole street. You came back at the busiest time of the day, only to rub it in my face even more. The ice cream truck was there with a line of our neighbors. He held the door for you and you let him help you out. At least he kissed you on the cheek, which you offered, and you walked past the line at the ice cream truck with a smug smile on your face. Everyone took out their cameras, filming my humiliation as you got out of that guy's car. All this instantly ended up on the internet. No, it wasn't like that. I didn't even notice the ice cream truck. I was thinking about you, Sarah said through tears. Shut up. You already said it. Now it's my turn, I said. I thought he was going to scold me for being rude to Sarah, but he didn't. He raised his hand and softly said to Sarah, "He needs time. You will have a chance to answer him. You said you'd see me in the morning, but it wasn't in the morning, was it? It was in the afternoon." "But honey, I love you," Sarah whispered. I ignored it. "How can I trust you when you left? You said it was just one night. I love you. How can you say I love you and then leave with another man? I didn't even know if you would come back to me at all, and now I wish you wouldn't. When you left, I got up to follow you, but Diana was standing in front of me. It's just one night. She'll be back in the morning," she told me. I tried to push past her. Then I felt someone grab me. I had to use my heels and elbows to free myself. I pushed past Diana, got to the middle of the dance floor, and suddenly two of his friends were in front of me with their hands up to stop me. "Just let her go. It's just for one night and we will stop you," they told me. I tried to push past them, but they pushed me back. I looked at the bouncers. They looked sad, shook their heads, and apparently this wasn't the first time he'd done this. "I called you, but the phone went straight to voicemail. You must have turned it off. How would I contact you if something happened to the children? So you abandoned the children too. I tried to fight for you, but everyone got in my way. Now I was in full swing and everything came out. I can't touch that man because if anything happens to him, the first person the police will call will be me. And when they find out it's not me, they'll start looking for the next husband of a wife he slept with and so on. When they don't find anyone, they will come back and start all over again. So I have to make sure that I have an alibi for every minute of every day. I have cameras all over the house so you can see where I am at any time. I even have an action camera with a tracker in the car watching me when I drive. I know there are video cameras that work that record people coming and going. So you see, I'm at risk 24/7, 365 days a year, and I have to defend myself so that you don't accuse me of abusing you or the children." She looked horrified. "Mike, darling, I would never do that. And I never thought you'd run off and have an affair with another man. But you did," I said. "I saw that it hurt. If he had just given you a ride home, it would have been better. No, a big flashy car that was loud, attracting everyone's attention, and you just let him do it. I can't go out into town without hearing someone shout, 'Cuck' at me. If I go out, I have to go out at night so no one recognizes me. I have to run at night. I can't even go to Murphy's sports bar. I got kicked out, probably because I threw my beer on John Simpson for calling me a cuck, and Fred Smith got a formal warning at work because of something he left on my desk. Then when I went to sort it out with him, he pushed me away, so I got a formal warning and was suspended from work for 2 weeks without pay for hitting him. I'm lucky that's all they did to me, probably because I'm the best engineer they have, but I lost the promotion that I earned. You know, we were celebrating that promotion when you did it." Dr. Martinez opened his mouth to say something, and I pointed my finger at him. "You, Mr. Counselor, said it was my turn to speak, so shut your mouth." He closed his mouth and motioned for me to continue. "How will you fix this? How will I recover from that? That night, I might as well move to another county, or I might just disappear and leave you to fend for yourself and pay the mortgage. If I get divorced, I'll lose half of what I'm worth, what I worked and studied for, but you are the one who cheated. Currently, I feel like I want to kill you and your boyfriend and spend the next 25 years in prison. I could get out in 15 years for good behavior. Pretty much the only thing stopping me is that I don't want my kids to have a killer father. And while we're on the topic of kids, I got a call from the school, and it turns out Jake got into a fight. Someone called you a name, and Jake hit him. I begged the school not to expel him. Your night of passion ruined my whole life. I hope it was worth it because now that you've shown you're a cheating wife, all the guys will be after you. As far as I'm concerned, they can have you. So this night of passion has ruined my life, your life, and the children's lives. So you have to live with it. After your night of passion, how the hell are you going to work it all out? Or am I going to have to sit and wait for you to run off with the next celebrity who attracts your attention? Sarah just sat there, shaking her head, saying, I won't. It hurts too much. I promise I won't. Then I got really angry. You also promised to stay faithful. Look how that worked out. Her body shook with sobs. The consultant turned to me and said, If you don't try, Mr. Anderson, you'll never know. I looked at him. Why should I take the risk? The only reason I'm sitting here is because of the children. I actually felt better after my outburst. I took a deep breath and seemed to calm down a little. This was the first time I let it all out in one go. It was Sarah's turn. Sorry, honey. I didn't really see the line at the ice cream truck, honestly. I was coming home to you, so I smiled. It was a terrible night. He just finished and fell asleep. I'm so ashamed. I realized that I made a huge mistake. But you love me. You would forgive me, and I would fix everything. I thought about the things I could do for you to prove it, and this brought back happy memories, so I smiled. And the tests. The results should come this week, the doctor said. Well, that gives us a lot to think about until next week, the doctor said. When we got up to leave, I looked at the doctor and said, And even your damn receptionist. I noticed she turned his signed photo so I could see it. I don't think I'll come back here if they treat me like that. That was it. The session ended. I headed for the door, but the doctor beat me to it. He held the door for Sarah, and she left. He looked at me and said, It was unprofessional what she did. Let me get this straight. Please be patient. He went to the back of the office and turned on the monitor, then called for security. We record everything that happens in these offices. I saw him fast-forwarding the video in the outer office. He saw how the receptionist turned the picture, although it was impossible to discern what was depicted on it. He walked to the office door and I followed him. He walked over to her desk and turned the picture to see who was in it. He then turned to her and asked, What temporary work agency are you from, Mercedes? Why? She asked. Because if you are a standard receptionist whom they send, I will no longer work with them. Now leave. She collected her things, including the photo, and left. The doctor turned to me and said, I'm sorry about this, and it shows me some of the depth of the problems you are facing. By the way, if the police ask me about your incident with Derek Sullivan, I will have to tell them that I have medical confidentiality. This means that I know something but will not say anything differently. He extended his hand. This time I shook it. We arrived separately, as Sarah came from work and I came from home since I was still suspended. I went to another part of the city and sat by the river where no one would recognize me or call me a cuck. I recalled the events that led to this. I came home from work on a Wednesday 2 weeks ago, and Sarah said to me with a big smile on her face, Honey, to celebrate your promotion, I booked us a room at the Grand Oak Inn, one of those with a 4-poster bed. I'm sure you know what we can do on it, and there will be a little dancing. We can have an evening. It sounded tempting to me. It was something I could be happy about. We arrived at the hotel, and there was little time before the dinner she had booked. She went into the shower first. There wasn't enough room for both of us. Otherwise, we would have saved water, you know. I saw how she laid out her clothes. It looked good. It doesn't take me long to shower and shave. I came out of the bathroom, and she was getting dressed. Her hair was beautifully styled up. She was wearing a long corset-style undergarment, one of my favorites. There was a beautiful red dress lying on the bed. She took her bra, and I walked over and took it from her, saying, Since tonight is just for us, maybe we'll give the girls some freedom. She just smiled, took the bra from me, and put it on. I frowned, and she stuck her tongue out at me. I helped her put on her dress while I buttoned up the back. I looked at her. She looked gorgeous, and I told her, Honey, You are the most beautiful woman in this city, and I love you very much. I extended my hand, and she took it, and we went to the restaurant. We were like two young lovers. I fed her dessert. I couldn't be happier. We finished dinner and headed to the ballroom. When we entered, I saw a small table in the corner. It was quite dark, so I headed there. Sarah pulled me to the opposite side of the room where 6 of our friends were sitting, mostly her friends. I sometimes play golf with Brad and Ryan. Tyler is not a golfer. He's a social member of the country club and is on the entertainment committee. They were with their wives, Diana, Jane, and Denise. I didn't really like Diana since she talked too much, but she and Sarah had been friends since school. I pulled her hand and turned her towards me. Was this supposed to be a night just for us? When Diana found out what I had planned, they started inviting themselves. I couldn't stop them, but we won't be here long. Promise. That's why you don't book hotels for the girls to be free. You knew they would be here. Okay. 1 hour and we're off to celebrate properly. Just you and me. You're right, she said. Smiling at me, I tried to get along with my friends. We danced a little, mostly slow dancing. Diana kept asking me to dance, but I refused. All my dances were for Sarah. I told her that. When the hour had passed, I reached up to Sarah and said, "Honey, we have places we need to go." She stood up and took my hand, and we said goodbye with many knowing winks and nudges. As we turned to leave, he stood there. The most beautiful woman in the whole city is leaving so soon. May I ask you for one dance? I vaguely recognized him. Then it dawned on me that he was a local championship baseball player. She looked at me and said, "Just one dance, honey, please. It's Derek Sullivan." She had done so much for me. Okay, just one dance, no more. You and I have plans. I sat back down. Tyler asked me if I wanted a beer. I thanked him and said no, it would only be one dance. Diana sat down next to me. Come on, don't be moody. It's just one dance, and it's Derek Sullivan anyway. I don't care, I said. It's our night. It went unnoticed that while we were arguing, there was another dance going on, and I couldn't see them on the dance floor. This dance was not as fast as the others. I got up from the table and walked along the edge, and there they were in the corner. I headed towards them when suddenly 2 guys whom I perceived as his friends appeared in front of me, blocking my way. One of them grabbed me by the jacket and said, "Easy there, buddy. Go sit at your table and we'll get you some food. There are 2 of us and 1 of you." I walked back to the table. I saw one of them heading towards Sarah and Derek. I returned to the table and heard ridicule from the guys, and Diana winked at me with her devious smile. There was another dance, and they didn't come back. This time I stood up. I wasn't going to stop. As I stood up, they appeared in front of me. Her hand was wrapped around his waist, his hand resting on her waist. She looked at me and said, "Just one night, honey, and then I'll come back to you for the rest of my life." She turned and walked away with him. As she walked away, she looked over her shoulder and said, "I'll see you in the morning. It's just one night. I love you." I was about to follow her when Diana stood in front of me, and someone grabbed me from behind. "It's one night. Just give her one night and she'll come back. She'll fix everything." This is Derek Sullivan. With the help of my elbows and heels, I managed to free myself. I made my way through the crowd to meet his 2 friends again. One put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Leave it. She'll be back tomorrow. Nothing bad will happen, I promise." I didn't know this idiot, so I didn't believe him. I remembered something about bouncers, and all I saw were the tail lights of the car moving away. I took out my phone to track her, but her phone was turned off, so there was nothing. There were no tears, only anger, and there would be pain, not just mine. I returned to the table. They were all there. It was obvious there was an argument going on, with Tyler and Denise shouting at the other 4. When I came up, they could see how angry I was. I told them, "Next time you see her, tell her it's over." I looked at Ryan and Brad and said, "Next time I see you, You better turn around and run away because I'm going to take the biggest stick I can find and beat you to a pulp. I suggest you stay away from dark places from now on. I turned and walked away from Sarah's friends. I went up to our room, collected my things, and went home. I left her things there. Now I was crying. Our 2 children, Jake and Emma, were with her parents, so the house was empty. They were supposed to return on Sunday evening. I spent the night pacing back and forth in our living room, wondering what the hell I did wrong. I went to our home gym in the garage and started pedaling hard on the exercise bike. It didn't help, so I switched to whiskey, but after a couple of sips, I realized that wasn't the answer either. And then I saw the sun rise. It was 4 in the morning. I went outside and looked at it, wondering what I had done wrong. I think I finally fell asleep in one of the lawn chairs. I woke up to the sound of children playing. I went into the house and made coffee, wondering what time the cheater would return in the morning. I waited. The sound of the ice cream truck drew me to the front of the house. It was nice to see happy people. I heard the car before I saw it. It was already past 1 in the afternoon. Just like she said, "See you in the morning." I saw them pull up, and so did everyone in line for ice cream. He came out and opened the door for her, offering his hand. She needed help getting out of the car in that dress. It was so tight. He kissed her cheek, looked towards the house, and grinned. She walked towards the house with a smile, passing the line at the ice cream truck. Could it be worse? She walked up to the house and didn't have the keys, so she knocked on the front door. I didn't open it. I was just sitting there waiting. I heard the back door open, and she walked into the living room. She came up to me and said, "I'm sorry, honey. It was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that." If it was a mistake, why did you come home before midnight? I'm not sure I believe you. You probably wanted to be with your boyfriend again. No, I didn't want to. I'm ashamed. I didn't want him to bring me at all, but I didn't have money. Everyone was at the hotel. I needed to come to my senses after what I had done, but he refused until noon. Your money is everything, more in the hotel along with all your things, even the good ones. If you want to pick them up, I suggest you go and get them. I stood up and decided to change clothes to go for a run. Maybe endorphins would help. Alcohol at night had not helped. As I walked down the stairs, she told me that the hotel had kept her things. Then it started. As soon as I walked up the front door, I heard the first scream that would haunt me for days. "Hey, cuck! How was your night?" I looked around but couldn't figure out where it was coming from, and there were a lot of people who could have shouted it. After that, I stayed at home most of the time during the day. I would get up very early in the morning to run or work out in our home gym. I used to go swimming once a week, but now I wasn't going to do it. I did some digging on the internet about Mr. Sullivan. While I softened a little towards Sarah, even starting to prepare food for her, I still didn't talk to her unless I had to. 2 days later, I was called back to work. I had been suspended without pay after the Fred Smith incident, but now I was told I had a meeting with my manager at 10 a.m. I arrived at the office, knocked on the door, and walked into my manager's office. If I was going to get fired, let's get it over with quickly. My manager, the company lawyer, and the head of HR were there, along with a middle-aged man in an elegant suit whom I had never seen before. After the meeting concluded with my promotion being reinstated, the stranger and I left the office together. We didn't speak until we were out of the building. He extended his hand to me and said, "David Martinez said you could use a little help to restore order. I'm glad I could help. By the way, the whole office has to go through mandatory training again, and they'll be fired if anything like this happens again." "Will something like this happen again? Do you have a phone?" I asked. He nodded. "Okay. If you have any problems, call any number." We shook hands and he left. I was amazed, but with this phone I didn't feel alone. I returned home amazed. I needed to get my work clothes ready for the morning. I hadn't been in the house for half an hour when the doorbell rang. Since I had not opened the front door since the incident, I peeked through the window next to the door. There was a guy standing there in a work uniform, holding a business card that said, Wakefield Securities. I opened the door with the chain and asked what he wanted. A cop friend of mine said you needed help with security, some sort of 24/7 alibi. My friend couldn't come, but he sent me to help you and give you advice. Dr. Martinez asked him to come in, but he couldn't, so he sent me. I let him in and showed him the CCTV system I had installed. He said that I did a good job but went too far. There's no need to put a camera in the toilet and bathroom because the cameras in the kitchen and bedroom already record everyone who enters or leaves. There's no other way. I pointed out that I wanted to see what she did when she was alone there, but that was what worried me. I didn't want to tell him that she might be self-harming and blaming me for it. He seemed to understand and muttered under his breath. He suggested several changes to the cameras for better resolution and offered cloud storage to back up my hard drives. He gave me the contacts of a site that currently offers great rates. He suggested replacing some of the cameras in the bathroom and toilet with listening devices and using those cameras in other places. Although it was a good offer, I refused, saying that audio recordings wouldn't capture someone texting. He still installed 2 better outdoor cameras. I returned to work, and things at home were approaching a new normal. For the rest of the week, people gave me a wide berth. I made an effort to dispel this by being a little more lively, excited to be back at work. By Friday, everything had calmed down. I tried to talk to Sarah more at home, but it was still difficult. I spent a lot of time hitting a punching bag to release some of my pent-up anger. Betrayal by those you love can do that. The local newspaper, The Herald, reported criminal damage to Mr. Ryan Brown's car. It was vandalized in the country club parking lot. CCTV footage shows a man in dark clothing and a hood damaging the vehicle before running off into the darkness. All this took less than 45 seconds. People took longer to react. Oh, and it was mentioned that the country club was shaken. The criminal was quite dexterous and fit. The police investigated but had no leads yet. The country club has beefed up security, hired a security guard to patrol the parking lot, and increased the lighting. They even planned to extend CCTV coverage to the corners. As a member of the country club, I'm sure rumors of the altercation at the Grand Oak Inn had reached the police, or Ryan might have pointed them at me. I was expecting a visit. They were just doing their job. 2 uniformed policemen arrived. They were polite, so I invited them in. They asked where I was the night of the incident. I told them that I was probably at home, but I couldn't remember exactly what I did last week. They asked if I had any conflict with Mr. Brown. I guess they heard. I admitted that we had a conflict and we were no longer friends. I also pointed out that they would have to prove my guilt rather than me having to prove my innocence. At that moment, Sarah came into the room, drying her hands with a towel. She looked at the 2 police officers and said, "He's been with me every night for the past week." She looked at me, smiled, and left. I tried to be normal with Sarah after that and talked to her more for the sake of the children, but it was damn hard. I kept having angry outbursts about what she did and having to leave the room. Sarah came home from work on Friday, and she was furious. She came up to me. I was pulled over by the police. My car insurance expired. Why didn't you renew it? Why do I have to do that? Why would I do anything for you after what you did to me? Get used to it. I snapped at her. And you'll have to pay the fine yourself. They let me off with a warning if I renewed my insurance as soon as I got home. I just snorted and walked away. The next visit to the consultant was met with varying degrees of success. He asked how we were getting along and how we were feeling. I said I tried, but I had angry outbursts. I mentioned that we had guests who helped me and that returning to work made life easier, not only financially but also mentally. Keeping busy was helpful. I didn't tell him about my plan to leave her once Jake turned 18 or when he left home. Sarah admitted that she saw my efforts, but then she started talking about how I didn't renew her car insurance and she was pulled over but let go. She looked at me angrily. I leaned forward and, looking at Dr. Martinez, said, She was probably only released because she is a friend of the local baseball star. I had other thoughts running through my head about her being an easy target or about her being a target for other men, but I decided to keep them to myself for now. I saw how she reacted. It didn't even cross her mind. I didn't stop the cops. They're probably fans, hoping he will lead the team to the AAA championship next year. Young people adore him. The older generation is not so kind to him. It was time to tell a few more home truths. I looked at her. We were supposed to have lunch with your parents last Sunday, but when I didn't go, what did you tell them? She looked down at her knees. We just had a fight. I didn't say anything else because the kids were nearby. She fell silent after that. I didn't think that was the whole truth. Doctor Martinez looked at her and said, "We can talk about this later." I knew she was seeing him separately to get help. Neither our parents nor hers were familiar with computers, so social networks were alien to them. Fortunately, the session seemed to naturally come to an end, and we prepared to leave. As we approached the door, Dr. Martinez said to me, "Mike, please don't do anything stupid again. There are things we can't protect you from." I muttered something in response, not sure if he knew the truth or was just putting two and two together. That night, after the kids went to bed, I said to her, "So you told your parents that we were having a little conflict. Did you tell them what the conflict was about?" "No," she replied. "I told them we disagreed on something, but I didn't tell them what it was." "Well, I'm sure they took your side, didn't they?" She just nodded. "So you told them we had a little conflict, but you didn't tell them what it was. Why not? Are you ashamed?" "Yes," she screamed at me. "But don't be too ashamed to let me take the blame. You told them I didn't understand your point. No surprise with that." She stood up, grabbed her purse and car keys and left the house. I heard her drive away. An hour later, she returned in tears. "I just told Mom and Dad the whole story. I don't think they'll talk to me, and I don't think Dad is happy with you." I felt sorry for her and softened. I went up to her and hugged her. This was the first touch since that night. She cried into my chest, but when she tried to hug me back, I stopped her. She went to sleep and I went for a run. I wasn't going to take the blame. I took the phone and made a 20-minute run to her parents' house. I called them and told them I was going to see them. I didn't give them a choice. I'm not sure if they were happy to see me when I arrived, but it was obvious that her father was not pleased with me. I loved them both, but I wasn't going to take the blame for it. Her mother brought coffee, and I played a recording of my visit to the consultant. As it played, I saw her father's face change. I didn't get a chance to protect her. People were constantly disturbing me. Her father offered to take me home, and I agreed. It was some kind of irritation on both sides, and it probably wouldn't be wise to run after 2 cups of coffee and a large slice of fruitcake. It wasn't far, and we didn't talk on the road. When we arrived, he got out of the car and hugged me. "Sorry, son. If you need anything, let me know." I think he had tears in his eyes when he left. After Sarah's last solo meeting with Dr. Martinez, she seemed very withdrawn, as if she was thinking about something. Saturday arrived, and I was doing my usual weekend chores around the house. I spent some time playing catch with the kids and some time in the home gym. I was thinking about going out for a beer later. The few bars on the other side of town probably wouldn't recognize me, and to be honest, the insults had died down, but occasionally you could see mocking smiles when someone recognized me. Sarah said she was going to take the children to my parents. She said she would bring them back later that day. I talked to my parents. They knew what was going on. They were on my side but loved Sarah and would do anything they could to help. They mostly stayed away, understanding that this was something we needed to figure out ourselves. They, like Sarah's parents, offered to take the kids anytime we needed time together. Personally, I didn't see the need for this. It was around 1 in the afternoon when I heard the sound of an ice cream truck down the street. This sound no longer made me happy. Then I received a text message from Sarah. "Please look at the ice cream truck." I instantly responded, "No." What was she trying to do this time? Sarah called. I figured one way to find out what she was up to was to answer, so I picked up the phone. Please, please do this for me. I'm begging you. Well, now she intrigued me. I thought, fine. I certainly wasn't going to stand by the window and watch another performance of hers, but I could watch her from the camera pointed at the front of the house. The ice cream truck arrived, and soon there was a line. Then the front door of the van opened, and someone got out. She was wearing a burlap sack. She dropped to her hands and knees and began to crawl towards the house. She had a sign hanging around her neck on a cord. I zoomed in, and it was Sarah. I walked to the front door and opened it. It looked like she had cut holes in the top and sides of the burlap sack and had a string holding it in the middle. She crawled on her hands and knees past the same crowd she had encountered when returning from her night with that idiot. Then the insults started. Cheater! And other women in line began insulting her too. It was mass hysteria. Reckless woman! Slut! Someone threw ice cream at her, and it got stuck in her hair. The sign around her neck must have tipped off the crowd, as it read, I beg your pardon. I was a mistaken woman. Forgive me. Everyone took out their phones, but she continued to crawl on her hands and knees until she reached me and then bowed before me. I extended my hand to help her get up and led her into the house. The cameras were still filming. I walked up to the line and shouted, If I see this on the internet, I'll come after you. Show some decency. Haven't we suffered enough yet? I left. I recognized most of the women in the line, but there were one or two I didn't know. I think it was them who started getting abusive. I don't think she lived here, but she seemed familiar to me. I was sure I had seen her somewhere before. Her hair was different. She dressed differently, but I had definitely seen her before. Couldn't remember where. It didn't matter. I had other problems at the moment. I helped Sarah inside, sat her down in a chair, and brought her a hair towel and coffee. I looked at her and said, Just tell me why. I don't know, she said. I found myself in a moment. A handsome, famous young man chose me out of all the beautiful women. He chose me, and I knew that you would forgive me. You lifted me up all night. I couldn't make a mistake. She looked down at her hands. But I was so wrong. You didn't forgive me, and when you screamed at me in David's office, I completely understood it. The shame and pain I caused you. You couldn't even defend yourself, and to come home like this, I wish I had even noticed the ice cream truck. She raised her head and looked at me. I'm sorry about the kiss on the cheek. You wanted to kiss me on the lips, but I didn't allow it. I turned my head at the last second. She lowered her eyes to her knees again and whispered, Just like I didn't let him be with me this morning. I wouldn't want to bring you what's left. Her body was shaking with sobs. If you want a divorce, I won't resist, but we will have to share custody of the children. But I want to take revenge on him. I have to take most of the blame. I should have been stronger. I shouldn't have let him seduce me. But David told me some of his stories, and it's a game for him, seducing married women in front of their husbands and then not giving them a chance to assert their rights. It wasn't me he wanted, it was a power game for him, and you were his target. I was just a pawn in his game. I'm not that beautiful after all. She looked at me. I want to hurt him for what he did to our family, she said, gritting her teeth. That I thought to myself, how come the consultant knows his story? She continued, It was empty. Then I realized that I had done well. Not everything, until you swore in David's office. I'm sorry, honey. Then why didn't you just come home? I pointed this out to her. I was ashamed of what I did. I didn't know how to look you in the eyes, and I didn't know where I was. I was so enamored with being with him that I didn't see where we were going, and I didn't have any money. You had a phone. You could have called me. I didn't know where you were, and I didn't know if you would come for me after what I did. She seemed to have no more words. She just sat and sobbed. I think that was the moment I gave up. After seeing the humiliation she went through and her realization of the full impact of what she had done to our lives, she seemed absolutely remorseful for her actions. I extended my hand to her. Come on, I'll help you shower, and then I'll pick up the children. They're staying at your parents' place overnight." She took my hand, and I led her upstairs to the shower. I think she was sleeping, but every now and then she would start and sob. Forgiveness began to come. I didn't sleep much, thinking about what she had done earlier. Couldn't have been a spontaneous act. It would have required some planning to orchestrate such humiliation. The next morning, the house was a completely different place. I checked social media. These were her pages, not mine. I deleted mine a couple of weeks ago. For some reason, there were no posts. It was clear that several had been deleted. We didn't talk much, almost like we didn't know what to say. We went about our business. She cleaned the toilet, washed clothes, and made a couple of cups of coffee, but kept walking past me, touching me. It seemed like she wanted to make sure I was still here. I didn't reject her touch like I used to. I had been working on cars that had been abandoned for the last couple of weeks, so I got dirty and went upstairs to shower. She was making the bed when I left. She touched me as I walked out. I don't know why it came to my mind, but I said, "We can't." She looked at me with bewilderment. Her light bulb went on, and she jumped out of bed and ran downstairs. I heard clattering down the stairs like a fairy tale elephant and then back up, probably 2 steps at a time. She had a piece of paper in her hands. "I'm clean. I got tested on Monday," she said, looking down. I didn't trust him. I grabbed her hand and pulled her back onto the bed. We made love. After that, I think we both slept well for a couple of hours. Over the past few weeks, I was rudely awakened by the doorbell ringing. All I heard was, "Oh my gosh, kids!" With these words, she grabbed a robe, seemingly mine, and ran downstairs. I looked at the clock on the bedside table. It was already 5. I assumed that my parents had returned the children. I thought I'd better go say hello, so I grabbed the second robe and went downstairs. I wasn't really thinking, but seeing my mother's mouth wide open and my father standing there with a big smile, I think they put 2 and 2 together and realized what was going on. My mother began to cry. I sheepishly asked them if they wanted coffee. Fortunately, they refused. They told us that the children had been fed, organized, and kept occupied all day. The house wasn't all sweetness and sunshine. I still had fits of anger, but they didn't last long, and I managed to control them. She still touched me every time she passed by. Things got better, and it became known that I was no longer banned from the local sports bar. I still haven't returned. People at work commented on how much happier I seemed. Before this, I must have been a real grumpy idiot. This time, I was almost looking forward to seeing Dr. Martinez. It was interesting, and I learned a little more about what Sarah was thinking. Now she mentioned it after the ice cream truck incident. As we entered Dr. Martinez's office, I suddenly recognized the secretary. I was pretty sure she was the one who had started shouting insults at Sarah at the ice cream truck. Maybe she was the one who threw the ice cream, but I couldn't be sure. She stood out because she was one of the few who didn't have a camera. We didn't wait long before Dr. Martinez called us into his office. He saw the difference and had a big smile on his face. For the first time, we actually sat next to each other. He started the conversation. "I think something has happened since we last saw each other. Do you want to talk about it? Sarah, do you want to go first?" First, I realized that he could have gotten the whole story from his administrator. "Can you tell me why you did it, Sarah?" She stood up, looked at me with that determined face I hadn't seen in weeks, and said, "I can't take away your humiliation. I can't undo what I did to you when I came home that Sunday afternoon. I could, however, join you in your humiliation. That's what I decided to do." She lost her composure a little. "To show you how sorry I am. It was as bad as I thought. I wanted to get up and run, but I forced myself to crawl past those people who saw me that Sunday. I was not humiliated that day, but the humiliation began there for you." Dr. Martinez looked at me. "What do you think about this, Mike? This should probably make you feel better." It wasn't fair, 2 questions in one, and the second one was leading. I had to think about these questions. I wasn't quite sure how I felt about it, But it was a brave move, that's for sure. It shows how sorry she is if she went through this. However, I was still confused. Dr. Martinez, you managed to stop people from talking about the incident on social media. Why did you do this? I know what shame and trouble it caused me. She probably couldn't have prevented what happened to me, but I didn't want her to go through the same crap I did. I paused. Who came up with this idea? Dr. Martinez responded. This arose as a result of our discussion about the humiliation you experienced. Then Sarah wanted to make it smaller. We realized that this was impossible, so she came up with the idea of stooping to your level to endure the same humiliation as you. She didn't tell me what she planned to do, but I know she hired my secretary to help her. This confirmed my thoughts. She was the one I saw online for ice cream. She had made herself look different by changing her hairstyle. Dr. Martinez continued. After you left, you didn't see how all the women attacked the one who threw the ice cream. It seems it went too far. Your comment, haven't we suffered enough? May have hit the mark. I made it a point to have short sessions with Dr. Martinez throughout the week if something bothered me. Sometimes it was just a telephone call. Sometimes he called me himself. It seemed strange to me that he always had time for me. It helped me control my anger, well, almost always. Mike, I asked Sarah if I could share this. She seemed to agree. I know Sarah wants revenge. Not just against Sullivan, but also against Ryan, Brad, and their wives for what they did. She didn't fully understand the impact of their actions until you spoke up at your first meeting with me. Sarah squeezed my hand. My father was right. You would have stood up for me, and I can't be sure, but if you appeared in front of me, I might have changed my mind. She cried again. But we'll never know. You never had a chance because they stopped you. Dr. Martinez continued. I suspect you have already started to take revenge on them. As your consultant, I must ask. Please don't do anything else that could land you in jail. This won't help Sarah at all. I smiled at him and said, I'll be careful. She told me she wanted revenge on Sullivan, but she didn't mention the others. I already had a plan and was discreetly collecting the necessary things to carry it out. On Monday evening, Tyler and Denise came to our house. Tyler was very apologetic for not supporting me enough in recent weeks and for not doing more that night. Denise was in the kitchen with Sarah making coffee, but they were there much longer than it took to boil the kettle. He told me they had quarreled with the other four. In fact, they hadn't spoken since and weren't expected to anytime soon. Look, I know you love to play golf, but you haven't played since this started. How about I play with you early in the morning before most people get there? I'm not a good player, but I can keep you company. Thanks, buddy. But why? Because I'm ashamed. Maybe I could have helped you if I had realized what Brad and Diana were doing sooner. I accepted his offer, even though I knew we would spend most of the time looking for his golf balls. It's better to take a lot of spare ones. Tyler and I weren't the best of friends in the group, but he'd always been a decent guy, and now he was proving it. We arrived at the country club early, and as he promised, Tyler kept up with me. We only played 9 holes, but it was enjoyable. It wasn't my best game, but I enjoyed it. As I was walking, I thought, this is a good friend. He exposed himself to fire just so I could get back out there. At the clubhouse, he mentioned that there was a dance on Saturday night and asked if Sarah and I would like to go. I was a member of the club, so I didn't need a special invitation. I told him I wasn't sure if I wanted to be ridiculed again. Even though Sarah and I were working things out, it felt too soon. He tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Whenever you're ready, buddy." He then told me that he had spoken to the committee and that the general feeling among the club members was that anyone who said anything derogatory about me would be considered behavior unbecoming of a member, and their membership would be reconsidered. There was a waiting list to join the club, so everyone knew what that meant. I felt that after the initial surge of humiliation, there was now a wave of pity that was almost as bad. On the way home, I realized that my revenge plan would be easier to carry out if I was at the club. I would have to think about it. When I arrived home, It was obvious that Denise was talking to Sarah about the dance. Sarah was determined because she wanted to publicly demonstrate her affection for me, and the country club was a safe place to do so. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be seen forgiving her. Would that make me a weakling? I'd have to talk to Dr. Martinez about it. Brad, Ryan, and their wives will most likely be there. I thought for the rest of the day. The seed of my plan ripened fully, but I would need another round of golf early in the morning. I talked to Dr. Martinez about it, and he indicated that this was what was eventually going to happen and that the country club would probably be a safe place for our first outing. I called Tyler and asked for another round of early morning golf. At the same time, I heard Sarah in the other room on the phone with Denise, telling her that she had convinced me to go to the dance. I let Tyler know that I had been persuaded. While we played, I felt this might be a betrayal, but I thought that if I asked him, he might have helped me anyway. I just didn't want to get him into trouble if something went wrong with my plan. While walking, he told me that Sarah had shared some of our problems with Denise, including the fact that I was suspended from my job and banned from the sports bar and my alibi 24/7. He apologized again for not being there for me. After the round, I offered Tyler coffee as a modest reward for his company. I've already decided that he won't pay for drinks today. I excused myself and went to the restroom after making sure I had a screwdriver in my pocket. I didn't forget my need for a 24-hour alibi. There were no cameras in the hallway to the restrooms, and although there was a fire exit at the far end, they would know if someone came out through it because it was alarmed. We picked up Tyler and Denise on the way, and as expected, Brad, Ryan, and Jane were there too. I looked around and saw other cars. Diana's BMW and Ryan's Audi. Probably their Mercedes hasn't been returned yet. Ryan's Range Rover was there. It's not new but very nice, his pride and joy. Unfortunately, they were not parked together. In fact, there was a space next to the Range Rover that Sarah used. The evening went well. I kept my word, and Tyler didn't pay for the drinks. I insisted, but I watched how much I drank. Then I saw my chance. The security guard had just returned from one of his rounds around the parking lot. I excused myself and went into the small room, then ran out the fire exit like a rat through a chimney. I grabbed the bag I had hidden behind the fire exit earlier, put on my gloves, and took out the first gas burner from it. I lit it, pointing it under the Audi, aiming for the fuel tank. I didn't know how long it would take, and since it was diesel, I didn't know how quickly it would catch fire. Then there was the Range Rover, which was closer to the fire exit and ran on petrol, which burns better than diesel. I pointed the lit gas burner under the Range Rover tank and then ran back through the fire exit, slamming it behind me. It's good that I trained. I wasn't out of breath when I came back and sat down at the table. About 2 minutes after I returned, there was a loud explosion. People ran outside, some through the front door, others through the fire exit. Sarah looked at me. We followed the crowd through the fire exit. I was the last one to arrive and only had a few seconds to reconnect the fire door sensor just as the alarm went off. I don't think anyone noticed. They were more interested in the burning Range Rover. Unfortunately, one of the cars parked nearby was also slightly burned. I looked around, and with the extra lighting in the parking lot, the small flame under the Audi was not visible unless you knew where to look. I knew, and suddenly it flashed brighter, but still focused on the Range Rover. By the time they noticed, it was too late, and the Audi was completely engulfed in flames. People managed to drive their cars away from the burning Audi. People saw whose cars were on fire, and many glances were thrown in my direction. I just smiled. The crowd split, and a very angry Ryan rushed toward me, shouting, "You did it, you idiot!" He and Brad attacked me, but I fought them back. It was time to return to the club. We could hear emergency sirens in the distance. I decided I needed to sit down and have a beer. It was going to be a long night. Sarah never strayed far from me. She held my hand as we walked back through the front door. She whispered to me with a smile, "Are you satisfied now?" I replied, "And you?" "Oh yes," she said, then kissed me. The police interviewed everyone. Strange, but I was the last to be interrogated. I could describe every minute until I went to the restroom, and Tyler pointed out I didn't have time to go around and light the fire. I would have been seen on CCTV, and security would have seen me leaving through the front door. The fire exit was alarmed, and no one heard it go off until everyone went to check on the fire. There were discussions about the attack on Brad and Ryan, but it was ruled self-defense after CCTV footage was reviewed. The policeman said Brad and Ryan might be charged with something, but he would have to discuss it with his superiors. "Oh, okay," I said. Probably helped that our car was parked next to the Range Rover. Okay, it wasn't our best car. It was Sarah's sedan, and if it required replacement, so be it. Tyler and Denise offered to take a taxi home. We didn't get home until early morning. The sun was already rising. Things were returning to normal. Sarah continued to walk past me, touching me. Unfortunately, I still experienced outbursts of anger. On one of our trips to see Dr. Martinez, he made what I thought was a ridiculous proposal. We had to go back to where it all started, have a good night, and exorcise our demons. Leave everything behind, especially me going back to the Grand Oak Inn on Saturday night for the dance. I wasn't sure. Now I like the Grand Oak Inn. They sell good beer, there's a roaring fire at Christmas, and the best bacon and brie sandwiches you can find in town. It's a small thing, I know, but I would feel sorry for the place. But yes, it can help exorcise demons. I told him I was worried about that idiot showing up again. Dr. Martinez assured me that if he showed up, he wouldn't be interested in Sarah. He's been with her once and never goes back to the same woman twice, he said. He studied this man, he confessed. I think Sarah and I realized it ourselves. Sarah agreed that we should continue to show people that we are together, and if he is there, she will have fun ignoring him. I admit I was scared. She did it once, will she do it again? At that moment I made a decision. Yes, we will go, and if she leaves with him again, it will be the end. There will be no coming back a second time, and I will take everything back one way or another. If she comes home with me, Dr. Martinez was right, it would give me closure. But let's see in the morning. Dr. Martinez also assured me that there would be people, including himself, keeping an eye on me in case anyone wanted to do anything. It made me feel a little better, just a little. I felt like Sarah and Dr. Martinez were ganging up on me, and it felt like a trap. I had no one to talk to, and it was a bit of a risk. I wasn't sure if I could trust what he was saying. I called Albert and told him about my concerns, including that I might not believe what he would say because I was confused. He just laughed it off and suggested we call Dilbert because that was his specialty. I thought about it, so I decided to keep an open mind. I realized I had nothing to lose, so I called Dilbert. I think Albert warned him because he immediately began, "Mike, I understand why you might be worried, but we think David Martinez wants you to calm down and stop looking back. Don't worry. There will be people there to make sure you won't be disturbed." He laughed a little, which was annoying, until he said, "I think you've sorted out your old friends. I don't think they will show up." We were getting ready. I admit I was nervous. She looked gorgeous, this time in a purple dress that showed off her cleavage, and she let the girls go free. The dress was cut to the thigh, and if you looked quickly, you could see that she was wearing stockings. I just hoped it was all for me. She saw that I was nervous about this. "Darling, please don't worry. This is my chance to prove to you that I'm yours," she said. She looked amazing that Friday night in the red dress, but she looked even better now. What bothered me the most was that she didn't seem nervous. She was looking forward to this. I think it made me even more nervous that I started to calm down after we ate. After dinner, we headed to the ballroom. We danced a couple of times. She smiled at me and held on to me. The time was getting closer to when we had to go to our room. I grabbed a beer and put it away. I'd only had 2 glasses of wine before, just in case, you know. Then, like last time, just as we were about to leave, he entered. He looked around, saw us, and headed straight towards us. He had a smirk on his face. "I'll take your woman again," he said. "So much for Dr. Martinez's assessment. I felt for a second that this was just another setup, but then he was in front of me, and I had to do something. Get out of the way, cuck. I want to dance with your woman. Sarah was next to me. Let's leave, dear. He's not worth it. He's not so great in bed either. He just shows himself well, like on the field. It's all show and no substance. Now I knew whose side she was on and who she would go home with, or to the hospital if I'm wrong. I could see how angry this made him. Sarah, sit down. This is a man's job. We were so close that I could feel his breath. From the corner of my eye, I saw people taking out their phones. I felt a hand on my right shoulder and heard the words, "Come on, buddy." I looked the idiot in the eye. If you want her, you'll have to go through me. But you are too cowardly, so just leave. I saw the rage in his eyes. He attacked me. By this time, the guards were already rushing in. One of them was on the phone. All this took less than a minute. I sat down. The security guard told me to stay put. I had no reason to move. My job was done. If I wanted to leave, he wouldn't have stopped me. Tyler brought me a beer. Denise appeared next to Sarah. I looked at them both and asked, "Why?" Denise reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "Sherry, the former mayor's ex-wife, and I went to school together," she said, as if that explained everything. Probably did. They called the police and an ambulance. It didn't take long for the police to arrive. A couple of young officers arrived and looked at the scene. There was a conversation between them and the guards. The policeman came up to me and said, "I'm arresting you for assault, aggravated assault." That was all he had time to say before another man approached from the side, showing something in his hand. He pointed to the man on the floor and said, "No, you're going to arrest that man on the floor for assault, aggravated assault." He attacked this man without provocation, and he was only defending himself. The policeman looked at the man and said, "Yes, sir." The man continued, "And you will collect video footage from the club and video from that guy in the corner with a real camera. Not a smartphone," pointing to the man in the corner. That man looked at me and smiled. I recognized his voice. I looked around the room, and there was our consultant with his secretary. Now they were sitting next to each other. I was sure they were brother and sister. He nodded his head and walked to a quiet corner of the bar. I looked at the man with the camera and recognized him as a deputy from a neighboring county. While one of the doctors examined Sullivan on the floor, the other looked at me and said that my injuries were superficial. A man appeared with a smartphone. "I'm from the Herald. Would you like to comment on what happened? What was the local newspaper doing here?" I thought to myself. She muttered something like, "No comment." He said, "Sorry, I didn't quite hear. Could you repeat it?" She looked at the reporter and said, "That person lying on the floor isn't worth commenting on. He's all bluff, there's nothing behind him. He's a coward. His performances are just like his performances on the field. Flashes of inspiration between lots of running around trying to look good. And you can quote me on this." The consultant beckoned us to the corner where he was sitting with a woman. Now I recognized her as the one who had started the abuse when Sarah was going through her path of humiliation, and his secretary. The consultant introduced us. "Let me introduce my sister, Sophie." This confirmed my suspicions. "So I'm guessing this is all staged," I said, waving my hand around. "Yes, I'm afraid that's mostly true. Let me explain. When I found out what happened from your lawyer, who is a friend of the judge whose wife cheated with Sullivan, I contacted Sarah and offered to help your marriage. I'm not actually a marriage counselor, but I am a psychiatrist. I hope you don't mind. We didn't expect Sullivan to be here tonight. The team was playing an away game, so he shouldn't have been here, but something happened. Sorry." He continued to explain. "Sullivan ruined many lives, and they couldn't find a way to stop him until we intervened. But it didn't go according to plan. There was no intended physical confrontation." Dr. Martinez leaned forward and looked at both of us. "Our priority was to help you get back together if possible, and to show people that Sullivan didn't matter and that people could rebuild their lives. We wanted to show that he doesn't mean anything. It all seemed a little far-fetched to me, a little far from the truth. My investigations were correct. There was a judge, a city councilman, and a senior police officer who, if they took action, it would appear to be an abuse of power. So I was right, it was staged. Then Sophie chimed in. Yes, but Sarah didn't know anything about it. I had to do my part because I know the pain my husband felt when I had one night with Derek. I don't know where he is, he just walked away and left me. I'm desperate to find him. But in the meantime, I'm willing to do anything to help the victims of Sullivan and to overthrow him. She cried through tears and told us. He chose wives of powerful people, so they couldn't take revenge on him because it would look like an abuse of power. He felt safe. He didn't even choose particularly beautiful ones. There are rumors that he began a relationship with the wife of a minor celebrity who was not particularly attractive. Rather plump. She believed Sullivan was interested in her and left her husband for him. He ignored her, and she ended up in a mental hospital after self-harming. The family was able to hide it mostly. She couldn't continue. Dr. Martinez continued his explanation. He enjoyed cuckolding people who couldn't respond, or they would be accused of abuse of power. The first was the mayor's wife. He resigned shortly after it happened, which was a shame. He was a good man. As soon as he resigned, he divorced her and moved away. Then a deputy from a neighboring county. And Sophie looked down at her lap, crying. Dr. Martinez continued. Sophie's husband was the editor of the local newspaper. Local newspapers cannot do what large multinational companies do. They must cater to local audiences, and he could not publish anything that would slander a local hero. If he did, it would add to his own humiliation either way. When Sophie returned home from her night out, Adrian was gone. He just left, and she still doesn't know where he is, although she tries very hard to find him. She hopes that now, with the story out, people will read it, and she can get her message across to Adrian. He'll realize what a mistake he made and maybe come home, or at least get in touch so we know he's okay. Why do you think he chose Sarah? I asked. I'm not sure, but we all think he was tired of playing psychological games and wanted to try something physical. So he saw you. You are a strong, healthy man, and Sarah was beautiful. So he chose you, but he still didn't take any risks because he had his teammates. You were just in the right place at the wrong time. Did you arrange this tonight? I asked. Well, in a way, yeah. Like we said, Sullivan shouldn't have been here tonight. We wanted a lot of people to see you two enjoying yourselves. I was going to explain this at our next meeting on Wednesday and ask for permission to start featuring you on social media. We didn't warn you because we wanted you to behave naturally and not put on a show if you knew about our plans. I hope you don't mind. I could get seriously hurt by it, so yeah, I guess I mind. In fact, there were 2 people ready to intervene if he had swung for a 3rd strike. He would have been knocked out. In fact, he should not have had time to strike the first blow, but they could not get through the crowd. He admitted that Sullivan had taken them by surprise. He usually waited until mid-evening before approaching someone, and he never approached the same woman twice. But as soon as he saw Sarah and me, he immediately headed towards us, which shocked them. He apologized. It was getting late, and I needed to think about it all. I looked at Sarah. She looked tired but happy. Looking at her, I felt her love, and I think Dr. Martinez was right about dealing with that idiot. But we would see in the morning. We said goodbye, and holding each other, we crossed the dance floor and headed to our room. Tyler and Denise were there. He asked me if I wanted to play golf early in the morning with a big smile on his face. I smiled back at him and said, "Sorry, buddy, but I think I'll be busy early in the morning." I squeezed Sarah. We didn't make love that night, we just cuddled. In the morning, it was different. We almost missed breakfast. There is a large frame hanging on the wall next to the kitchen door. Inside is a piece of a burlap sack with the inscription Sutton seed potatoes. Sarah said she put it there as a reminder. Every time she looked at it, she felt a little humiliated. A year after the ice cream truck incident, I took it down. That was enough. Strangely, the trial did not take very long. Forces about which I had very limited knowledge and over which I had no control intervened. I was called first and asked to talk about that night and the events that led up to it. I told them almost everything from the moment we walked into the Grand Oak Inn and the rest of the evening. Sometimes I was a little vague. Took more than an hour. They showed a video. It started with Sullivan walking across the dance floor towards us. He seemed to be heading straight towards Sarah and me. I thought it had been caught on video earlier, almost as if someone was expecting it. The video was professionally filmed. Sarah was called in next and was asked to confirm what I had said. She sat during the interrogation and agreed with everything I said. She cried when she finished. Tyler and Denise were called in turn and agreed with what was said about the attack. The next people called confused me, but at this stage they were not directly related to the case. The former mayor, his ex-wife Sophie, and a few others I didn't recognize. Attorney Sullivan constantly objected but was overruled in most cases. The case was decided. He was guilty. The video proved it. The lawyer's job was to reduce his sentence as much as possible. A number of character witnesses were called, but the team's leadership was absent. The prosecutor noted this, along with representatives from charities he supported, but some were noticeably absent. Things were going well until a psychiatrist was called in who explained that Sullivan was not to blame for trying to seduce married women. His star status had gone to his head, and he was not prepared for it. It was the fault of those who had not taught him how to cope with stardom, and we should feel sorry for him. However, my lawyer pointed out details of courses available on the subject, run by Major League Baseball, which Sullivan had signed up for but did not attend. Sullivan exploded, screaming and shouting, and the court session was interrupted. When it resumed, contempt of court was added to the charges. Sophie's behavior changed in the middle of her testimony. I followed her gaze. Her husband was sitting there. I recognized him from the photo on her desk in Martinez's office. Derek Sullivan received the maximum sentence in prison for aggravated assault, fighting, resisting arrest, and contempt of court 8 years. Because he abused his star status, he'll probably be out in 5 years unless his arrogance gets the better of him again, in which case he'll serve the full 8 years. His baseball career is over. His lawyer immediately said he would appeal the verdict. The judge leaned forward and said, "It is your client's right if you think it's reasonable." His tone made it clear that she would be wasting the client's time and money, so she'll probably do it. Since he got the maximum sentence, it won't get any worse, and she will get paid. I didn't know about resisting arrest. It turns out that when he went outside, he started screaming at the police, "Do you know who I am?" and started pushing them. There are rumors that batons were used and medics were called. There were also rumors that the deputy chief of police and the judge studied at the same university, albeit at different times. As we were leaving the court, a man I had not seen before approached me and extended his hand. He smiled, and for some reason, I shook his hand. "Do you still have your phone?" "Yes." "Keep it charged but not on. We'll contact you if we need your help again. Your name is now Elbert, by the way." He smiled at me. "Good job and thank you." "Thank you very much. You made a lot of people happy." After the trial, the local newspaper published the story, a full expose of Sullivan and his teammates' antics, without mentioning the names of the victims, although some gave permission for their names to be used. When the story was picked up by the national press, our baseball team didn't get promoted to AAA. In fact, they almost got relegated when Sullivan's antics became public. When Adrian found out how Sophie was involved in bringing down Sullivan, he contacted her. They're trying to make things work, and it looks like they will succeed. Thank you for your viewing. See you next time, and if you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.